Galaxy movie is a pretty big success, almost near the 900 million mark worldwide, and is projected to be the first $1 billion movie this year, which is pretty impressive. But I don't want to talk about its success, which is almost a foregone conclusion originally, because the first movie was a huge success. But I do want to touch on some comments Miyamoto had recently, thanks to some interviews in Japan, as the movie only recently released there, which I think, on the one hand, are interesting in and of themselves, as it shows their headspace when it comes to making these movies. But also, some of these comments have been a little divisive online, so I want to dive in a little bit more, talk about what he's talking about, and just kind of get our thoughts out there as it applies to at least 3 specific comments he or ideas he explored in these movies, or in these interviews about the movies. So let's touch on the biggest one, of course, being the pace of the film, because as it turns out, I think we all agree it's got a very fast pace, and that is deliberate. So Miyamoto basically says that he didn't want kids to be bored in movie theaters and like running around, while their parents have to sit there anxiously waiting for their kids to calm down. And that's why they designed these movies without even having a chance for them to breathe, because they just wanted to have your full attention the full time. And in that sense, hey, mission accomplished. On the other hand, I think it has some flaws, and I think one of those flaws actually relates to how they actually make these films, because Miyamoto breaks down the process that Illumination uses, which is to basically design the movie in 3-minute chunks, and then there's basically 30 of those in a 90-minute film, and then they can just, really swap and rearrange those units however they want to end up with the finished film. And I think that's where we start running into some problems, because one, you can almost see those 3-minute chunks as you're watching the Mario Galaxy movie, and it just goes to the next scene, and it all feels like very similarly paced, and there's no for me at least, it doesn't have that kind of proper build-up and momentum they would hope for from a movie, I think. And I think something that the first movie, I think, actually did better than this one, even though they may have followed a similar design ethos. I know that people had their complaints about the pace of the first film as well, though I think that was ramped up in Galaxy, to the point that it almost feels like you can see, it kind of just feels jumbled. It kind of just feels like they designed these scenes, then figure out the order for it afterward. And I think that's partially why it just feels so thinly plotted at some point, which I'll get into in a second here. But John, do you have any overall thoughts on the pace issue that Miyamoto explained here?
Yeah, as someone who enjoyed Galaxy movie more than the first one, and I'm not saying either one, that's just my preference. I thought they were able to make it feel more Mario worldy.
Mario Galaxy-y, you mean?
Yeah, sorry, stand corrected. But I do agree, the pacing, especially in key moments that should have taken more time to breathe or explain, were still too fast. At least my philosophy on those 3 minute things is that when it comes to an emotional one, that needs to at least be doubled and maybe tripled for those emotional scenes that need the slower pacing to kind of really absorb in those moments. I understand they want to be fast, so maybe just double, but even that double would give way more time and space to kind of let that idea sit in.
More space in the Galaxy movie, that's right.
and you know what, let's be honest, they are probably 100% right about those kids. We've seen kids attention spans these days, they are so short. Well, so it's so reasonable, but you're just but I mean, don't want that.
to a degree, I actually agree with you in the sense that, the movies, in all my showings I've been to, I think 4 in total, no kids have seemed bored. But on the other hand, John, I've been to other kids films or family films, Wild Robot, or whatever Pixar movie came out not too long ago. I can't remember anymore at this point. And the kids Migration, even from Illumination, and the kids seem fine in those showings too, by and large. So I don't think they have to necessarily stick to the 3-minute block ethos. And as you were saying, I think maybe just, I think the overall idea of it isn't terrible. One thing I like about the Mario movies is how they do capture that energy and, fast pace of the games. I actually like that about the first movie in particular. Yeah, it was quickly paced, but I think it worked for what it was. I think we started running issues in the second movie in particular, where it felt like they didn't have the enough slower moments to kind of support that framework. And so I think to your point, just doubling maybe the length of some of those slower scenes would definitely help, at least in the giving us more time to breathe when it comes to the characters' emotions, and also just giving the sense of building up to something, which is something it's hard to do when you're building out the 3-minute blocks. And also another problem for me, at least, is that with Miyamoto here talking about how they can like rearrange and swap things around, I feel like you did kind of feel that in Galaxy, you know, where they are like, it just feels like, again, the sequence of scenes that are so thinly plotted at points that even though the overall story is pretty simple, it can be hard to remember why things happen for a particular reason. For example, I was talking to a friend last night. I'm curious if you had this same problem too, John, which these things happen so quick you don't even think about it. But I was thinking back after my first or second viewing. I understand why it happened now. But after my first or second viewing, I'm like, wait, why did the UFO drop Peach's castle again? Like, I couldn't even remember what caused it to happen. And quick check, Sean, did you remember why that happened?
I know the tether lost during like the fight, but like I can't remember exactly. It was just so much going on, and I'm kind of jumbling it up with other scenes, as you said. I just can't.
It's hard to remember, exactly. Yeah. And there's several moments like that. Well, the reason it happened, John, is because I think it was Yoshi or Kamek or something caused a lever on the control panel to go up. That shoots the Mega Leg up into the UFO, which then causes the tether to break of the Peach's castle, which then causes it to crash land in the planet below. And yeah, there's many moments like that where things just happen so quickly because they have to, and it feels like they just came up with some random idea to make them connect, even if it doesn't always make sense or really flow with what happened before.
Yeah, Mega Leg in that scene kind of just randomly shows up, and like it just, I think that's why I struggle to remember, is that he literally just kind of pops up into that scene.
Right, Mega Leg. Freaking talking flower. Did you guys hear that? So freaking annoying. It won't shut up. I actually muted him before this. I don't even know why he's talking right now. I muted him before recording this discussion.
He wants to share his opinion.
I guess he does. Even he's upset about this. But yeah, that's basically it. In that, I think they just need to work on the connective tissue a little bit more and give things a chance to breathe. Maybe not a ton of it, but a little bit more so than they have currently, just because it seems like with Galaxy, we did kind of reach a breaking point with a lot of the audience, even people who loved the first movie, like myself. Some of them felt like, not everyone, John prefers Galaxy, for instance, but it does feel like a lot of people felt like the pace was kind of out of alignment with what people typically expect from a movie. So hopefully they get that balance right better for the third one. And I think that they can, and I hope that they take the feedback to heart. Though again, there are people who disagree with us, you know, with me, John, including yourself, to an extent. So
I like the movie, like I said, even more. But I agree with that element. Is that I do think it was too quickly paced, and certain moments need more time to breathe.
Right, but it would help sell those character moments in particular, which actually ties into this next Miyamoto comment, which he talks about how Mario basically evolved from a doll in the 3D games to a person in the films, and I actually agree with this. So Miyamoto specifically says, until now, the characters are pixel art or beings that you understood through controlling them, and their movements were relatively limited. But with the film adaptation, I feel like they have become beings that can move around truly freely. Mario became like a doll when he was in 3D, and in the film, he feels like he has become a person. I think that's a big evolution, and I fully agree with him here. I mean, I love Mario in the games, don't get me wrong, but he's completely one note as a character, especially in the mainline games. Like, he's happy, he's jumping around, yelling yippee, yeehaw, or whatever, yeehaw, yeehaw.
He's even one note in the RPGs, let's be honest.
He is, maybe even less so in the RPGs, which is funny. People pointed to RPGs as having actual stories, and I'm like, not really when it comes to Mario himself. Like, the surrounding characters have their like little arcs in their chapters, but when it comes to like the core cast, they really rarely ever change. And especially the case in the mainline games. And the films absolutely gave Mario and Luigi and a lot of the cast, especially Peach, which we'll talk about more in the second film, more like humanity. Like, they actually feel like living, breathing characters, which is why I also really liked the origin story of Brooklyn, because he came from our world. It makes him instantly relatable in this crazy world of the Mushroom Kingdom, and I like that. It really, you know, you see Mario like not just being happy, he's sad, frustrated, he gets annoyed. Like, I love seeing all these different sides of Mario for basically the first time, at least cohesively in the film, and I thought that was great. And even Bowser too, like, we get to see his side of things, and why he's doing things his way, and it even in Galaxy, or perhaps even greater in Galaxy, where we can see the backstory of Bowser. And I think
Bowser is probably the best character in Galaxy, because like his plot points were just pretty consistent. Like, it was straightforward, easy to read. Like Mario's, I understand Mario's, but like not a lot of people seem to really catch or care about it. Like, it's him kind of becoming the Mario we know. Like, it's like he's still kind of like has a little bit of agitation starting off, like very kind of like, just more of a regular guy, but then he's going to become something more, someone who's just like really wholehearted. Good old Mario.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, I would say, getting back to your Bowser point, that I think Bowser probably has the best story in this movie, even more so than Peach, even though it's basically her film. But I think I would almost argue it's Bowser's film. Like, I think Bowser is the one that has the most complete arc here. And even though I have my initial complaints about his arc and how they kind of like go back on what they're setting up, after rewatching the film a few times now, I'm like, I actually see where they're going with him. I actually liked how they did it. It happens very quickly, but I think overall he's the most successful character in the movie, along with Junior, I'd say.
There's one scene I wish they would add one or two more, or just shift it around, is when Bowser goes and gets himself imprisoned by the Bee Kingdom.
Right.
And I just wish they the Honey Queen, and I would just wish they got him and him escaping from it a little later down the line, or put a extra scene in between of him kind of like really slowly bonding with the fellow like worker bees.
Yeah, that all happened very quick, which again speaks to our points of how thinly plotted it is. Like Bowser, Bowser Jr. just happens to find Bowser right after he graciously gave himself up on behalf of the other bros, or the rest of the team, I guess. And it all just feels very thinly plotted for those reasons. But also, like, the thing that tripped me up a little bit there too, is that Bowser just found out he has a son. So why would he voluntarily give himself up in this moment when you would think he'd want to go find his son and be with him, rather than sacrifice who knows how much time of his life to help, to do the sentence of Mario, Luigi, and Yoshi, right? But whatever. It's a minor complaint, I suppose, in the grand scheme of things. So, now, I want to touch on one final point of Miyamoto, and kind of relates to what we were just talking about, and that's how Peach had to change in the movies. So, Miyamoto says that clarity is very important in games, and players need to be able to understand what they need to do immediately. That's why the structure of going to rescue the kidnapped princess has functioned as a kind of symbol. I understand that there were criticisms that this didn't fit with the current image of women, however, it's also a part of the game's mechanics that can't be easily changed. He continues, we decided to make a bold change with the portrayal of Peach in the movies, and had many discussions with Chris Melandre and others. In the first film, we clearly presented a fighting woman, but in the second film, we felt that wasn't enough. By depicting Peach's worries and emotions and the fluctuations in her relationship with Mario, I think she's become a richer character. And I actually agree with all of that. In the games, it does make sense in the sense that you need to quickly relate a want for Mario, and, rescuing a princess goes back, it's a tale as old as time, right? And I think that worked for the games. But when it comes to a movie, I think you do want to do more than just that. And I had a whole video on why Peach needed to change. I think making Luigi the damsel in distress in the first film was a great decision. And I think also making Peach a competent fighter also made sense. And I also agree with them, they did make her a little bit richer in Galaxy as well, in that they gave her a want in the form of wanting to find her lost family. My complaint is that they didn't go far enough with it. Like, they barely touch on why she feels lost. She just does, and she needs to go find her sister, which she didn't even fully know was her sister at that point, I guess. And I wish they had just explored that a little bit more, but I think they could have made Peach so much richer than she actually ended up being in the film, and I think it was kind of a missed opportunity.
Andre, what would have been a perfect solution?
What?
Flashback through Rosalina telling the story of Peach growing up and feeling the loneliness of being without her sister, without her family.
Yes. They were so close. They were close to having that.
Yeah, it's like it would make it a very interesting, because they did that with the Bowser Jr. flashback. They used an interesting art direction of like puppetry. So using just whatever the word is, but using the opposite of that is a very well crafted like storybook style with Rosalina. Boom, solve the problem right there.
Yeah, or even if you don't want to go the storybook route, we could give Rosalina a flashback when we see her in prison to her giving up Peach or something of that nature. I guess it gets complicated because you already have Peach with her own flashback, but I agree with you. Something like that could have helped and also make Rosalina feel like she has a greater presence here. It's so funny how, people got upset with the first movie for sidelining Luigi, yet I feel like he had a much stronger presence in that film than Rosalina has here. I think increasing the bond on both sides would have really helped develop, not just Rosalina, but even their relationship in total. And I think your ideas there would have been a great way of fleshing it out. So
yeah, I think it would have tied all the elements a lot stronger in the end run if that happened.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that gets back to the pace of the film, where it this time didn't allow those moments to breathe at all. It just didn't give Peach the time that she needed with her relationship. Like in the first movie, we see multiple times what Luigi means to Mario and how Mario, we see him feeling down and beaten up about not being able to rescue his brother. At one point, he thinks his brother's going to die, you know? And we never get that with Peach here. Like, there's a very brief moment where she's frustrated, and they should have taken that even farther, you know? Like, it's almost played off cartoonishly. Like, it was a cute moment. I liked it. It's like, man, they could have done so much more with that. And I think it would have added more to her character.
They should have shown her struggling to try to solve the situation, but not having any solution. Like, someone who's grown up having to solve everything themselves, just not having the ability to solve it.
Exactly. And I actually made a video right about that, John, which I'll link on the screen as soon as we get closer to the end, which we're probably at about now. So if you want to check it out for yourself, it'll be in the description below as well, where I talk about how they could have fixed Peach in the Mario Galaxy movie, especially as it applies to that frustration scene on Dinosaur Planet. So, John, any final thoughts about any of this before we wrap it up?
I just hope Miyamoto is a stubborn person. We all know this. I just hope he takes a little bit of this criticism. He sounds surprised by the criticism, so hopefully he does take that to heart. I just hope he does, because I think the core elements of Galaxy were good.
Yeah.
It's just a little bit too up and down on the positioning. I think they should take that to heart. I think they should realize that there's movies like The Wild Robot and this stuff where they can blend in these moments with the action, and it still feels perfectly well paced. Like, it doesn't slow it down to a slog. It gives it motivation.
Wild Robot was amazing. I adore that film. And yeah, I agree with you. For me, almost every individual scene of this movie is totally fine, if not great or perfect. I think the scenes individually are great. It's when you string them together into a movie that you run into problems. And I've seen a few people comment how, you know, it almost could work better as as a TV series, these isolated episodes, and it kind of feels that way, you know? And I do hope they take the feedback to heart, because I think it's clear to me, like, I've seen people call these like reference slop or just slop in general, and I don't agree with that. I think it's clear a lot of heart and, like, you know, effort is put into these movies. It just seems like some kind of balance shifted from the first movie to the second, in my opinion at least, that resulted in it ending up not being as strong. For me, I know not everyone feels this way, but even you agree that the pacing is a bit off, and hopefully they take that feedback to heart, and we can really dial in on the third movie and, like, really hammer out those issues to make, like, you know, hopefully a truly great film again. So
Mario Brothers Wonder movie would be fire. So much creative ideas with that.
Especially because if you have Daisy and you make her the princess of the Flower Kingdom, which Mario Wonder takes place in, it writes itself almost, right? Yeah, exactly. Bingo. So, all right, everyone, that's what we got for you. Thank you for watching. Let us know in the comments below what you think of Miyamoto's comments and our thoughts on Miyamoto's comments. And with that, we'll catch you later. Bye, everyone. Oh, and go check out my videos on how we can improve the Mario Galaxy movie. I'll link to them in the description below and on the screen all over right now. Bye, everyone.
See ya.